Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Thomas, and welcome to Global Strategy and Leadership Webinar 2. Thank you very much for everyone coming along tonight. It's good to see in my student view there lots of participants tonight. So we'll have a little bit of chat. I'll try and regulate it so it doesn't get out of hand, because I do want us to get through the slides. And we've got just a little bit left over from Module 1, but already in the pre-Q&A for this webinar, some people are saying that they're reasonably comfortable with Module 1, and that's good. They should be, because, don't forget, there it is, 5%, all right? And bang, we're into this one. Important, very important. Important not just on the exam, important if you actually ever want to do any strategy. You've got to understand the external environment, and you've got to understand your internal capabilities. What are you good at? What are you not? How would you close the gaps if you're going to choose a strategic option? Also, I mentioned, and you don't have to, last week we were also doing this reminder, if a study pledge helps you, do it. This week, our focused reminder, you could have done it at any time, is if you think you need a study plan, if it's going to help you with discipline, please do it. And you can see next week, you will get probably an extra email towards the end of the week saying, hey, schedule a practice exam, especially if you want the feedback as a full focus course student. If you want the detailed feedback off me or Courtney, and we're normally A2 marking those ones, then you've got to make sure you give yourself the 4 business days. All right. Sometimes I can turn around the second exam faster, but give me the 4 business days, because what happens is I get slammed and everyone sits on a Saturday and a Sunday. That's my key problem. I understand that people haven't got time to sit on a Wednesday morning, they're at work, or maybe a Wednesday night because they've got kids and other stuff, but you can see what's going to happen to me. It happens every semester. What was the most difficult part of Module 1? None of it? Cool. I think that everyone's pretty comfortable. Yeah. Getting into it, fair enough. Yep. And so for fit versus stretch, so I don't want to lead anyone down the wrong path, because I think some of these concepts are a little bit too grey sometimes. Go back to the table as well, because isn't there a resource-led fit? You can look at that aspect of it. So perhaps refer to the table in terms of helping you define the question. I know what I'll do. I'll try and get just an example question on Facebook this week. A medium. I'll try to get a medium hard level question that's fit or stretch. The way to make it hard is probably make the options a bit more wordy and a bit longer. The Coke versus beer question for fit, stretch, and stumped. Yeah, it wasn't versus beer. You mean Coke versus Coke Life? So we did the Coke. Is Coke Life are using the same resources to create a new product? Yeah, you are. Is the product drastically different? Not really. It's reduced sugar and it's got stevia in it. Your Coke, you're massive. You have a massive R&D area. You have full-on pilot plants. You can simply do 50 different runs of it and chuck all the stuff out until you're comfortable that you've got it. All right. So to me, it's much more of a fit. And my example of Red Bull is extreme, but there's not that many strategies that should be stretched. Stretch is going to be more risky. Stretch has to be risky, right? And the other problem is people think it's a fit and it could be a stretch. And so we had that quick conversation about was Masters. I know some of you from overseas, but Masters hardware failure in Australia was owned by Woolworths. Was Masters a stretch, and they thought it was perhaps a fit? That's some of the commentary that came out, that they believed, we have the resources to do this. We do giant supermarkets. How can it be that different, right? Was it different enough that they actually needed new resources? They need to develop resources internally much better to deal with a completely different product range? I don't know. There's also other bunch of reasons. They also bought land at a very stupid time, post GFC, whereas Bunnings did a massive footprint expansion just after GFC when prices slumped, and so they got prime location and much better price. Masters also took on way too much debt through land acquisition. So there's never one example. Can I email the questions? Yes, okay, or I'll put it in the webinar for next week as well. Yeah, I understand not everyone has Facebook, and I don't put many questions up on Facebook. You're not particularly missing out. I tend to put up more articles as a way of people staying connected, but fully understand if you don't want to join Facebook. So globalization, really, really quickly, because there's videos, and put in a question now if there's something in the video that's not clear, because I'm sure you've watched it. Benefits: access to new markets, the ability to reduce costs by going global, by having options to make things in other countries, to have your customer service running out of other countries than the one where the majority of our customers are. Faster communication, okay? That has been huge. The ability to launch products across the world at the same time. It sounds, we kind of just accept it. And it's interesting, I think younger people in Australia sort of go, well, yeah, and us slightly older people and much older people, talking to my mum about it the other day, a product will come out in the States or in the UK, and Australia would get it 2 years later. 2 years. And I remember also as a kid that whether it was a band that I loved who would start a tour, so they'd be like, you know, the Stones are going to tour in 92 in the States, in Europe, and Asia, and then they might go to South Africa, and then that's 92, and in 94 they come to Australia. Because we are the bottom end of the world. And it was the same with things like films. Now it's just released. Now communication just means it all comes on Netflix, you get it at once. A lot of major films are released at pretty much the same time. It used to be ludicrous how long we would wait in Australia. So that is a small example. But it's communication, the ability to transfer data and communicate to logistically do things like Apple iPhone releases across the world at the same time is amazing. Distribution, so much faster now. It's amazing. So is it a more equal playing field? Yeah. Can be argued both ways a little bit, but that's the idea. Globalization ideas, it breaks down barriers as long as in the pestle game people are playing fair through the political forces and the legal forces about things like trade barriers, and that's always going to be a challenge. But it does, in the end, globalization in some ways has forced the trade barriers to be broken down. It is kept nipping away until it's just become too difficult for governments to justify keeping them. If you're not in Sydney and you're camping out, did he say that? I had no idea he said that. Challenges, increased competition, right? If we've got access to other markets, then those markets have got access to us. Why doesn't it affect Australia that much? Because we're a piss-poor small market. We're tiny. Tech companies go and test products out in New Zealand, and then they do a second test and they do it in Australia. Why? We're so isolated. The chance of even really negative feedback getting out. Yes, it does get out on social media, but really expanding, people physically seeing the devices is limited, right? Do it in Spain, and the devices are over the border in Portugal, France, Belgium, everywhere else immediately, and everyone is seeing everything, especially with the physical product. Here, it's not the same. So you've got to take that into account. It looks all great. I can access Asia. Well, Asia can also access my country. Sensitive to economic downturns, all right? What happened in globalization? What happens when Europe is still stuck in a 10-year in and out recession? Okay, Europe is now worse than the States, which is slowly dragging itself out. Increased compliance costs, absolutely. You have access to all these markets, but you have to meet compliance costs. And everything from an IFRS is one thing, but you've got all of the safety standards, product standards, also quality standards that you're trying to meet. Yes, there's ISOs, but it's not straightforward. Increased complexity of stakeholders, increased financial risk and admin costs. If you are setting up in other countries, then yes, you have the same challenge again, don't you? Now, 1 second. The 4 V's, what is it about? Maybe a question there. Is that the new part that they've put in? I'm trying to remember the diagram that they put up. Hang on one second. Yeah, the volume and variety stuff. So what specifically about it? Tell the truth, you can tell from my voice that I didn't take that much notice about it. I think I put in a question into the exam. Yeah, so I'm about to talk about the role of the accountant in terms of globalization, but in terms of, you mean like the variety and the velocity and whatnot? Thought it was rubbish and ignored. Well, I guess we can't do that. I would pay attention to table 1.3, table 1.2, and that's talking about the different roles of the accountant. But to be fair to Neil's question, it's back on, and I'm going to look at it now, figure 1.9. Yeah, and it is an addition from the previous one. And from what I can see out of it, it's trying to say that accountants have to be more across more across the board in terms of understanding data and how we use data. So it's related to this idea, I believe, of big data, right? And I suppose I leave it to, I don't really talk about the 4 V's, but we talk more in module 3 about big data, specifically about the variety of data, so it's structured and unstructured. The fact that the volume of data is just overwhelming. The problem is not the storage of data, it's there, it's the ability to break it down and to actually get any insights out of it. That's why people doing data mining type courses are very much sought after. Even MBS, my old business school, is now offering a master's in analytics of some sort. It's literally a master's of analytics. In terms of the word veracity, I take that just to mean, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the veracity in terms of the quality of the data, and it comes a little bit back again to this structured and unstructured. But you know, I get your point. It's not completely clear. I'm not going to pretend to explain it now any better than what I've just done then. So let me go away, and I can quickly write either a blog on it, or I'll put something in the email, perhaps, about it if it's an issue. So I can do a blog. It'll be a short one because there's not really much in it. It's more, to me, it's more about table 1.2. So I think what you need to know, I can't say they can't, they could still ask a question about the 4 V's, but it really is just a diagram, right? It's talking about data, and it's mentioned again in modules 2 and especially in module 3 around, is it real-time data? Is it historical data? Is it structured data? Is it unstructured data? So I'd read the previous 2 or 3 paragraphs before the 4 V's. Have a look when you get to module 3, the video I've done on big data may or may not help. Sort of questions, email me. And then also pay attention to this last part in module 1, just to, here are these roles. And you can see it's trying to play on the idea that as you become more senior, that what you're doing across these is becoming higher level. So you're going from gathering data, analysis, performance, you're gathering information, yeah? You're analyzing data, not gathering. You're interpreting trends. You're acting as an intermediary. That means you're someone that should be able to write a simple report, draw an insight out, and give it to your boss so it can be put up to the senior leadership team or rolled up into another report, right? An active role in modeling. That means you're not creating the model, but somebody, there is a model that's been created. You are able to input into that model data sets, and you're able to actually do some basic manipulation so that you can draw out insights. All I mean by insight is just, there's no point in just sitting there and having a having a table with everything in it, you've got to be able to go, well, we saw this correlation between this factor influencing this factor, right? Go up again, we go to the financial controller. So then you got this words like this: conceptualize business models, challenging assumptions, plan for contingencies. Not so much expected at senior accountant level, is expected at the financial control level, because likely to be managing a team. To understand, to be part of something, you have to be rescoped. Again, it kind of indicates you're not going to be in the formal scoping. Well, low rubbish, you could be. If you weren't, you could certainly be in the rescoping. I just think don't take it to be exact. I understand what the study guide is trying to do. It's trying to give an idea of where your role, how could you relate to where you might end up involved in strategy tomorrow, the next week, the next month, right? And at the CFO level, which is where you want to get to, then you've got to have the leadership element to it, right? So the first one, well, I don't even say that. The first one's about understanding strategic implications, but then we've got lead decision-making process, the communication, which is part of the leadership, lead change where change has to occur, right? Identify strategic issues and take steps to ensure the organisation can remain competitive and relevant. Very bloody broad, but again, it's part of the review process that's saying, well, you are part of the CEO's team. You are the right-hand man or woman, and so it's expected that you're leading senior leadership, people around you, and that as part of that, as a group, you should be identifying strategic issues by demanding the right monitoring, the right reporting. And we'll get to that all the way into Module 6, which is talking about implementation. What's so important about implementation is the ability to do good reporting. So, Module 2. External analysis. All right, we have the Matryoshka dolls, which are mentioned in some school as well. We're talking about being consistent with our analysis. Pestle is now green pills, and I've done that because that was the pre-work exercise. Alternative medicines. And the milk I've just used because I'm going to quickly ask you to tell me what the 5 forces would be for the milk industry. All right. This is kind of our subject map. I welcome anyone to come up with a more interesting layout than that. I tried a few different things. I had funnels, I had all sorts of stuff, and I tried to be too smart, and I came back to something a little bit more, I don't know, straightforward. Learning objectives for Module 2, let's just use them as we go. We start at the start, defining an industry and the value chain, okay, and understanding integration in the value chain. So, Icebreaker, brand I really, really love. Great product. Started designing and making high quality hiking clothes from merino wool. They sell over 50 countries. Shortly after their establishment, Icebreaker management made the decision to work directly with the merino graziers rather than buying wool at auction. Yeah, got it? So, A, B, C, D, or E. Which of the following is Icebreaker done in relation to the operational strategy? Go for it. Prove to me that you understand value chains, but you've done an SMA anyway. Okay. Proved. I love that. So we can do this really quick. Chris's tips on an industry value chain. Don't think you're going to have to do it in an exam, but whenever you get asked to think about an external analysis in a project team, and the rest of them sitting with their arms folded before and going, yeah, it's just like this and that, actually do something. Sketch out the steps. Identify the parts of the chain, in the chain the organisation sits in. It's not always we're just in manufacturing. You could be in manufacturing and after sales service because you've got an agreement with the distributor that they look after that and use their paid distribution. Okay? You don't have to be in sequential steps. You can be in different steps. Think about whether the organisation could forwards or backwards integrate. Why on earth would you want to do it? Because there's a saving in it, because there's an opportunity in it. Right? And then you identify if you're going to do it, what sort of resources would they need to perform the integration. So you're in the design stage. backwards integration takes you back in this example value chain. This is not all value chains are not this. This is just one way of writing one out. Okay, and you can have more shorter steps and more detail if you want. You can roll it up a bit. There's not a right or wrong. There is a right or wrong in understanding what backwards integration means, and it means upstream, and what forwards integration means. You're backwards in this value chain, you're having to go and deal with the raw materials yourself rather than buying it off somebody else. All right, you're going to go and get the raw materials. Forwards integration, you've designed it, you're not designing it, you're now going to also do the production, or you're going to design it and get somebody else to do the production. All right, and the only point I want to make here too is that too many times people see a value chain and go, yes, they can forwards integrate. So let's go to Go Gear. Which parts of the value chain did Go Gear operate in first? Yep. No. Glenn, no. Greg, yes. What? No, let's not try and talk about Apple. Yes, Robin. Yep. Good. So the question was Go Gear. Go Gear is the case that we were talking about last week. It's in the case tabs in the weekly webinars. Short case. These guys make athletic compression apparel. Where do they operate in the value chain? The value chain could look something similar to this. And they operate in the design and distribution. The production is being done by a third-party Chinese company that they have, has severe worries that they cannot meet the demand under the very ambitious schemes that they've got for going international. But my point there again is they are not doing sequential steps. So they are here, they design, they do this pretty cool R&D, they do distribute, they use agents when they're going to Europe, but they distribute in Australia. They go to some large department stores as well. Distribution can be done in different ways, and you could probably assume that they've got a level of that because they would stand behind their product quality and their design. They could forwards integrate to this one. They could, but would it really be worth it? Probably not, because we know about the costs, the labour costs to produce in Australia. Why would you do it? All right, industry life cycle. So the complementary medicines industry survey, shouldn't say Friday, it was sent out on the Wednesday one. What stage of the industry life cycle is the industry in? Yeah, why? Good. What's the 85% that people thought they would grow, something like that? Yeah, good. Low rivalry. Well, yes, that's a result. I just wanted you to find the case facts. Yeah. Yes, it's growth. Okay, so you just got to be careful when you're answering a question, especially if it's a written answer or you're looking at even an MCQ, and the correct answer is the one that gives supporting evidence. All right. And the example of this read too is that it's really straightforward, and to make people feel comfortable that strategy in terms of answering these exam questions does not have to be difficult at all. Right? The revenue is going to grow. 83% of complementary medicine companies expecting to grow their businesses. In the survey, there's a whole heap of revenue that's predicted to grow. There's an increase in jobs. The industry is in growth based on the case evidence. So well done. 23% of companies had job vacancies. 72% of manufacturers expect to see growth in employee numbers. or 58%. Heck, maybe if I got that wrong, I apologize. All right, the supporting facts are found easily. So what happens in the introductory cycle, life cycle phase? Oh no, that's not fair. What is your ability to predict profitability in the introduction phase of an industry life cycle? Yeah, excellent. It's actually really, really hard. It's introductory. Good. Okay. So it's early days. Long run profitability is unknown. Okay. Of course, if you're a startup and then you're claiming you're creating this industry, then you're telling everyone and all your potential venture capitalist investors that the profitability is going to be enormous. But of course, it is completely unknown. It was completely unknown for a Facebook type connecting social media tool what it would be, right? And for Snapchat, it's not working very well. Facebook share price doing well, Snapchat not. One of the failed IPOs of last year. Okay, what happens in growth? A couple of quick things. No, we're not going to talk about power supplies at the moment. Cash outflow, excellent. A lot of competitors, no. Heavy cash flow, which way? You can't just say heavy cash flow. You want to be saying in or out. Heavy cash flow in, so lots of revenue. Yes, lower buyer power. Few substitute products, good. High revenue, not normally. Demand still high, yes. Increasing competition a little bit. A surge in new competitors. There should be new entrants, yep, to the market. High cash outflow, absolutely. All right. Demand exceeds supply. There is demand for it, but a lot of, I just don't want people to ever get it mixed up. A lot of people think that the growth phase is where a company is making lots of profit, and it absolutely is not. You are burning through cash. All right, you are trying to meet demand. If you're being successful, fantastic. All you're doing is plowing every spare cent you have back into capacity, skills, capability to keep getting more product to your customers that you hope keep buying it because demand is exceeding supply. It means that there's room for new entrants into the industry. You want to be a new entrant, you want to look for a growth industry. You do not want to look for a shakeout and a decline. All right, unless you're like that very entrepreneurial, ambitious, very ambitious Indian guy that has bought Arium Steel and now wants to buy Holden. Interesting bloke. Why does the chart say high cash input? Should that be out instead? High cash input into the business, into input into what you're spending. There's my reasoning because I did the holistic review, so I've got to pretend I didn't muck that up. Yeah, input to manufacturing into infrastructure. There's not that many substitute products at the moment. It's an industry, not about the company, the industry cycle phase. So this one, maturity, I'll start reeling them off now because you kind of know from here, cash cow. This is where the companies are making the money. Rivalry is intensified, absolutely. Demand becomes closer, sure, equal to supply. Buyers start to have higher power. These people have come in, but new entrants have come into this growth phase, right? Some of them may not even survive that bit, but there's more of them in this phase. So more competition, but it's also less investment. Lower capital investment, buyer power is higher. Efficiency, cost control, market segmentation. Now we've got the crap side of it all. Customer loyalty decreases. So it's customer loyalty too. None of this is black and white. It's already decreased in maturity from what it was here. Customer loyalty is great here because you find a company and you go, they're great. They're new, they're doing something different. You wouldn't say it's a whole new industry for Icebreaker, but there weren't many people doing high quality merino wool garments. They were doing a lot of the polyester stuff, what do you call it, polar fleece and all those things. if it's an industry, I wouldn't say it's an industry. That they're in the clothing, they're in the outdoor apparel clothing industry. They're in this little sub market. But you can do a life cycle phase on a sub market, and when they're in growth, there are other companies that have popped up now. They had my loyalty, absolutely. Now that's probably more into a maturity. Maturity lasts a long time. If you did this on time, actually, I've got to fix that. It doesn't do this right, I think, in the study guide either. Maturity, the reality is for a life cycle, maturity is here and off the damn page. That is where industries, that's where they're hanging out. The industry becomes unprofitable. That's why there's shakeout. There's generally acquisition and there's people exiting the industry. Okay? Have a look at the video. Tell me if you have any issues. Can an industry be classified in more than one part of the life cycle? A, B, or C? All right. So the companies can be in kind of a different one. Look, it's a no. Just put this into your head. If it becomes yes, you're in several stages, then it kind of defeats the purpose of having the life cycle. You want this concept to be black and white enough that you can put the industry into a stage. All right. So don't. And this also this also can be an issue with a written answer, just in the sense that people like to hedge their bets. You don't have to worry. It'll be really clear whether it's maturity or growth or decline. And I don't think they'll probably even have one where it could be shakeout or decline. If they do, the marking grid will have shakeouts correct and declines are correct. Okay. Different companies within the industry can be in different stages. No, because we're talking about the industry. The industry life cycle. So if that's the industry life cycle and it's in maturity, all the companies, they can be in their own life cycle, but they're all in an industry that's in the mature life cycle. Wouldn't multiple industry stages suggest industry definition too broad? Yes, that's right. Yeah, it intends to defeat the purpose of it. All right. Yes, the industry is made up of companies and stakeholders and kind of a few other things, but yes. Pestle, how comfortable with Pestle are we? I suppose we can tell by what's in this, but I'm guessing most of you aren't too bad. So it's just pest in SMA, isn't it? And we're adding an environmental and a legal in GSL. Yeah? Confused political and legal. Okay. So back to the complementary medicines one. And remember, I said in the question, you can't probably fill them all out. It's pestle in the SMA. It used to be just pest. All right. So what would you have? Just, I don't know, just a point in political. And I want you to pick what you think the most heavily weighted pestle factor is. Which letter of the pestle? Excellent. Yep. So here is just my attempt. Again, there's not the right and wrong. This is, okay, there's political, neutral to positive. Free trade agreements with Japan and Korea, more in the pipeline, will open up export markets further. Different trade policies in different countries makes exporting competitively more difficult. Barriers here. Government appears to be heading down a path of deregulation, which would lower barriers to entry. Okay. So these guys have to hope for, and we can see it with the medicinal cannabis industry at the moment. You know, that in terms of them looking at their future, it's really dicey in one way. We can see it with the infant formula stuff. When you rely your whole market, your customer, all your revenue is China, and your Bellamy's. If you invested in Bellamy's a couple of months back, you've made a fortune again. You've got the investment for the year done, right? If you invested 6 months back, then I don't think you're even back up to where you were, because The Chinese government took away their registration or their license to operate, to export their infant milk formula into China. That was it. That was all their revenue. So political linked with legal. So that question before, there shouldn't, don't have any confusion. All it means is political will always be closely linked to legal. Politics, so trade barriers, to me, the creation and removal of trade barriers are a political aspect, but they have a legal aspect, and yes, they're put into legislation. But regulatory burden and red tape reduction, that red tape bureaucracy is more of a legal thing. Where a government is setting policy, it's more of a political thing. Right? Neutral, there's a weaker link to a strong economy, meaning higher wages, which leads to higher operating costs. But I couldn't get much more out of that. Social, yes, there's enough in there in social. It's positive. There's growth of health consciousness with a focus on preventative measures to reduce risks. We've got an massive aging population issue and health cost issue in Australia and most of the Western world, an increase in chronic disease. 24% use complementary medicines now to treat their condition. And there is a social move in the broader context that's supporting this industry. All right? Tech and environmental, not great. Legal, regulatory compliance, increased costs driven by the Therapeutic Goods Administration, makes it harder to maintain cost levels that don't erode the margin. Registration process is long and bureaucratic. Yes, it's still linked to political because the government sets the rules, but I put it into legal here. Hurts SMEs more than large companies. Paradox is burdensome regulations from TGA behind the safety and quality that makes it desirable for exports. That's absolutely correct. So you got some inside knowledge there. So a good mate of mine, he's just sold his business for an absolute mint. He sold it out last year, which is a very clever move because there's been a downturn in nutritional products industry, sort of alternative medicines industry in the export markets. A lot of companies have been really hurt in the last 12 months. And yeah, the reason he could export to Asia was because he was TGA approved for a number of his products. It's simply that. The credibility that came with that opened up the market. So he had to weigh it up very quickly and go, yeah, I will wear the horrible regulatory burden and high costs associated with keeping your registration for your product, because the upside, this is what gets me into the Chinese market. That's what gave it to him. Which of the following about pestle is most likely correct? Okay, lots of different answers. That's okay. That's okay. That's the one for most likely. All right. We can do it a little bit the other way. We just said political and legal are often linked. Okay. A country's GDP being too broad, absolutely not. GDP is the sort of thing we talk about with an economic factor affecting affecting an industry. So no, that's fine. So sorry, the statement is incorrect. What it's saying there, the effects of social change often has the weakest impact. I don't believe that there's anything in the study guide that says that one impact of those pestle categories is any higher than the other. So no, a social change can easily have the highest, second highest, third highest impact. Technological impacts, environmental impacts can often, not always, can often be linked. All right. Oh, it's simple in terms of renewable energy, in terms of in terms of Tesla, in terms of the rise of the battery industry, the rise of now of the lithium and graphite mining industry, except they're all setting up in West Africa. So you can often link technology to environmental impacts because of the ability to, unfortunately, the technology make it worse, or in some cases now we're starting to get technology that's helping us deal with larger problems like climate change. So we are already up to, well done, we've looked at the idea of the industry, the definition of the industry, and the value chain in it. We understand, you guys already clearly understand integration backwards and forwards. I think you get the idea of the life cycle really well. You answered those points well. You've got that sort of approach now to say a broad view. So they do pestle first because it's the idea of this remote environment analysis. I want to know this whole industry that I'm in or thinking about getting into as a new entrant, where is it likely to be in 5 years? Then you want to narrow it down. So you're like, okay, so it's going to be okay in 5 years. Now, if I'm in the industry, what's the chance that I'm going to be profitable or not? The overall impacts look like they're okay, but who are the players in this industry? And that's why we move this idea of the 5 forces analysis. Now, I asked you to have a look at escape route. So there's this idea of a travel industry. It's in the mature stage. The travel agency industry, I really should say. Okay. So let's not wait at the first one because we know the characteristics. We've already answered them. We've already answered the characteristics about what we regard the mature stage to be in the industry. Why mature? And I think it says that specifically in the case. So don't ever try and analyze something different in the case when the words are said in there. All right, intense rivalry between companies, focus on cost control and efficiency, attempt to get more market share using customer segmentation to find new markets. That's one way. All right, and yep, thanks, June. So there's also a particular case fact that you can use. And although we're only doing an example here, when it comes to getting those 12 marks, this is important. You just do broad statements of growth and you don't back it up why, you don't get the marks. You may get half a mark or something. You will not get 3, you will miss out on 3/4 of the marks allocated to a question that's asking you something about that. If you don't give it the case evidence to back it up. You're being tested in your ability to analyze a case and do it relatively quickly. So the 5 forces map for escape route. I can't remember where I start with. Power of, I'm going to have to flip to that. What do we start with? Threat of new entrants. So, high and low, and why? Again, you're never going to get a question, even in MCQ, that the answer is high, low, medium, not. Easy to enter. Easy to enter. And this is also complexity in the case. Are we including online as an offering in the industry definition? And this is where the Matryoshka dolls come back. So there is a bit of a link back here. If we were talking about the travel agency industry that had, because we're talking about flights, so that's what the case is talking about, stores in shopping centres all around Australia, is that something that you want to jump into? And is it easy? Is there a barrier to jump into it? With the addition of Webjet, technology is available, you can get in, online would be easy. Okay? So the threat of new agency with physical store presence is low. That's going to be a pain in the butt to do. And why would you do it when you can see that that model is struggling? Margins are smaller, significant capital is required. Overall industry growth is relatively low, but online growth is high, which makes online attractive to enter, doesn't it? Doesn't require large capital, barriers to entry would be low. All right. What did I do? I said the threat of your entrance was high because I'm assuming that online is one of those ones that can enter. Now let me quickly look. I went suppliers next. What have I done there? Sorry. Tell me about suppliers. And who are the suppliers? Again, get your industry definition right. Yes. High travel suppliers provide commission. Yes. So when we think about how important are those suppliers to the industry? Quite important, because they rely on these damn commissions. What the suppliers want to do? Greg's right. They want to cut the commissions. Yeah. Okay. Stop naming me who the suppliers are. I got that. You got that right. Now it's the matter of the power of suppliers. Because what are they doing? They're pushing to sell direct to consumers and cut out the agency. Developing more sophisticated websites to make it easier for customers to buy direct. So they're trying to do forwards integration. Yeah. Increased competition from online agencies led to product discounting and cheaper options for suppliers than using a traditional travel agency company. You could say they're high, you could say they're medium to high. Yes, they can do bundling, but you just want to be able to draw, you want to be able to pick an impact on the right here, and you want to be able to give it some justification. That's what I'm trying to get you to practice, and trying to do it reasonably quickly, because you're going to have a much smaller case, but that doesn't really make it easier. You're still going to have to do it quite fast. I'm just going to guess that the next one, if it was suppliers, would be buyers. I hope it is. Yes. What is the power of buyers? And you're doing really well, so keep this up. I know it's like you're going to sit there and type away in a chat box, but it means you're not looking at Facebook or Netflix, and you are engaging with the content and learning. So highs, they can compare, absolutely. The power of buyers, is just crazy. I probably should have crazy high. Very little switching costs, great, good use of a term. Discounted fares, yes, but that's not telling me why they're really high. Make sure you go back when you're answering these questions, you use the phrases, have the right phraseology. I think I just made that word up, but use the phrases study guide are using, use the technical concepts. So things like switching costs. They're able to shop around for the best price. Yes, you got these things like aggregators. You could almost say aggregators is its own new sub-industry, with Trivago leading the lot because they bombard us the most. Three new entrants, suppliers, buyers. What about substitutes? Does that make sense? So people are still going, and we'll talk about this more next week or the one after. They're still going for a certain reason to the travel agency physical store to meet David or Susan or whoever's behind the desk that gives them great customer service. But there is becoming a substitute there for the customer. I don't need to go to this agency anymore. And yes, that's a really good point. There's something about business travelers too. Yeah. I like this case because it's not clear cut and it's not meant to be. I quite like this story. It's like, oh, there's different things going on. Because seriously, whatever you get out in your end exam result, I don't really care. It'd be really good if you got out the basics of understanding why strategy is difficult. What are some of the concepts and the steps I can take as an accountant to be part of this? One day you might get invited to be on a project team. You might hate it. You might really enjoy it. It might send your career into a slightly new direction. But you've got to have a level of curiosity, and you've got to be able to sit back and just think about things. Yep. Yep. Okay. Good. 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 And so that leaves us with intensity of rivalry. Okay. So it's a consolidated industry. There's a smaller number now of larger agencies. Right. They are fighting each other, and they're fighting the rise of the online competitor, and also the rise of the straight substitute, which is the supplier forward integrating. So you've just brought in a few different concepts from module 2, but this is how it should come together. That's how you should be able to articulate it. All right. New entrants into the industry are undercutting, and the worst thing really to me is the threat of the substitute is really the worst thing. So the outlook I've got in profitability is negative. High threat of new entrants into an industry that already has high industry rivalry. They're being squeezed by suppliers and buyers. And you get the slides and you can read that to your heart's content. And so in terms of integration, travel suppliers have attempted to forwards integrate, right? Creating a substitute for the customer. And a travel agency is not going to be able to backwards integrate. They are not going to become a hotel or an airline. They're not going to be able to become a supplier. It's a no-go. It cannot be done. All right, let's do a few more. I know we've only got a few more minutes, but let's keep plowing along a little bit with this 5 forces, because it's an important thing to get through. It's 18% module 2. You've got to understand pestle, and you've got to understand 5 forces, and probably 5 forces where people slip up a little bit more, right? I don't think you guys are going to. A, B, or C? Yep. So you've said, yeah, thank you, Robin. It's not an exam question. It is me just testing, going, yes, they all are. It's back to the Matryoshka or the babushka dolls. Depends. So important for substitutes. It depends on how you've defined the industry or how it's been defined for you. It's a pharmaceutical industry, then they're competitors. Okay. If it's a red meat industry, then chicken is a substitute. If it's a metropolitan transport industry, then they're competitors. All right. But we don't think of the airline industry. We don't think of a train being a competitor. If we're talking about the airline industry, we think about the train being a substitute to get from A to B, don't we? There's a clip on it. Watch it. Make sure you're clear with it. Email me if you're not. What would be the impact on threat of new entrants if the industry is extremely profitable? A, B, or C? Excellent. All right, really good. Let's just move on. Threat of new entrants, why these issues questions relevant. These are just some of the things. You'll see a whole bunch of prompt questions in the study guide, and that's great. You don't have to answer them all to make a decision on this. So some students will email me and go, I could tick these boxes, but I couldn't tick these ones. It's just not FR. Take FR, AAA, that stuff out of your head. You can't do it that way. You have to make a judgment call. Right? You have to be objective, but make a judgment call. These are the sort of things that come up. The distribution requirements. How hard for me to get my silly protein water in that started to work and then didn't work. One of the key reasons that I started to struggle was the distribution requirement. Very, very difficult when you're trying to get a convenience product into consumers' hands who are going into 7-Elevens and IGAs and milk bars, well, they don't exist anymore, milk bars, but those sort of places. You have to be able to distribute it. And once you start it, if you get traction, you've got to be able to reduce your costs, your distribution costs. Proprietary products and technology. That gentleman there, talk about him another time, he is a complete whatever. Not a very nice person. He's the guy that bought the rights to one of the HIV drugs and then put it up, whatever it was. What did he put it up? Like 10,000% or something cost, and then told everyone to get stuffed and had a massive backlash against him. Martin Schreckle or something. I might have got that name wrong. I think he's broke. I don't know if he's in legal trouble. Shreckley, sorry. But it was interesting to watch it. You could also support him and go, well, he's got every right. Nobody else wanted to buy this. He is testing the market. He is saying, do people really want to pay? Well, if you don't want to pay for my product, don't buy it. The way he went about it and his reaction when he got questioned, that's where I think his age, his immaturity came into it. And he looked like a twerp. But you could also argue that he had every right buying this product to say, I own the product, you don't have to buy it. But we've got an ethical, moral issue here, people that need a drug. All right? Not sure. Go back and watch Dallas Buyers Club. It's a good film. Watch the clip. What will be the impact on supplier power if there is a high concentration of suppliers? A, B, or C? Why are you going B? Clear this up now. Why B? Why B? Okay, cool. More choice, more choice. Okay, no worries. Good. I love addressing this now. Burn that into your brain. So you're not wrong in the way you're thinking. You're just wrong in the way you've read the question. And I understand why people find it confusing. But you're just going to have to burn this into your head because it's just not worth even wasting 1 or 2 marks on it if they come up probably in an MCQ. A high concentration. So we think of high concentration in terms of how many bits of solution of salt are in here. High concentration, there's lots and lots and lots of salt. There's a high concentration in salty water. Right? Excuse the phone. But no, it's not that. A high concentration means fewer. So it means fewer suppliers. Suppliers have more power. That's okay. So the things you're thinking about, concentration of suppliers can help tell you whether they've got power. Ability for the suppliers to, likelihood, sorry, not the suppliers, for you to backward integrate. If you can become the supplier, you get some power back. If you can't, then they have more power. The ability to switch, switching is always there. Proportion of the supplier's cost to the total buyer's cost. How much does this cost you? Do you badly need these commissions? You got a problem. They have you more in their pocket than you in theirs. All right. Google and Facebook is an example of concentration. I want to do online advertising. They're the only 2 places I really go where I can reach my customers with online advertising. Concentration, they have the power. You don't even understand the damn bidding systems for the ads. You have no choice. You just go, oh, yep, and set a maximum that you're prepared to lose. All right? Why the Apple shop? Because of things like brand strength. But everybody lines up. There's a clip on it. What would be the impact? I'm just going to go a couple of minutes over. What would be the impact on buyer power if the buyer is very profitable? Good. Why are these issues relevant? It's similar sort of stuff. You still consider the ability to backwards integrate. In most cases, the buyer's not going to do it, but the buyer's not always in the end consumer. The supplier can be raw materials, the industry can be the manufacturer, and the buyer can be a wholesaler, or a retailer is the buyer. Don't always think of the buyer as you or me standing outside the shop walking in to go and buy. All right? But think about the importance of the item to the buyer. How much do I care about the item? The proportion of the item's cost, the total buyer's cost. Okay, if it doesn't cost much, if it's just milk, what do I care? The concentration of buyers. If everyone's trying to sell, then I have the power, don't I? Okay. Why have I done Bitcoin? I can't remember why I put Bitcoin up there. Distribution channels and switching. Nah, I shouldn't. It doesn't link well enough. I think I put Bitcoin up there about the importance of the item, the frenzy. So the power went to sellers because of a stupid frenzy for a thing that has no physical value. What buyer's power means. Who is the buyer? The travel agency apart from the customer. No, that's right. It's the travel agency industry. So the buyer is the end user in that case. It's you and I wanting to go on a trip. Again, there's a clip on it. We're going to have to finish there. And perhaps I'll put it up in maybe Facebook. It doesn't really matter. Have a think about what you reckon 5 forces would be for the milk industry. You don't even need a case for this. If you're from overseas, a bit more difficult, think about your own one. If you've lived in Australia, you can easily now work out the 5 forces for the milk industry. Okay, we did pretty well because we knocked off the important stuff in 5 forces, and we're on to basis of competition, key success factors, and then we're kind of wrapping up module 2 and a bit of customer segmentation. Don't forget, there's material in the LMS. You're not just relying on me yapping for an hour, but there is material in the LMS. We can do this in Q&A if you want to, because you're all here tonight for 5 minutes. But for now, I'm going to finish the recording and say thank you very much, as I do every week, for coming along. I do appreciate it. It makes it worth our while. You don't want to talk to one person in a room, and it's good to see there's lots of people in the webinar room tonight. So coming next week, we'll continue with module 2. All right, there's no point trying to finish module 2 in 1 week, and then we will get into the internal analysis. So we'll do a little, just a round off on 5 forces. I'll check the pre-webinar work again, or maybe we'll do, I can't remember which week. There's a week where I introduce a mini case and make you do it on the spot, which people said last semester was really helpful. So I am pulling exam conditions onto you and doing it early. The slides will go up in about another half an hour once I've got this room back under 38 degrees. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your week. I will be back in 30 seconds for Q&A. Look out for your webinar your email for pre-work for the next webinar on Wednesday. And you get a reminder on Friday. We're talking about study plans this week. We're talking about booking your practice exam next week. Bye for now.